You are now tuned into the TRUENORTH.BET podcast. I'm pleased to be here. TRUENORTH.BET. It's always a bet in the right direction. I'm your host, Brandon Graham. Pleased to be here. Pleased to get right into it because it's been an incredible slate of games within the March Madness, within the NBA, NFL, with the draft around the corner. There's so much happening in sports right now, and I'm here to break it down and get right into it. So, what up? Let's get it. Let's get on. And I was first start with the March Madness and the March Madness tournaments that we had with the women's and the men's. And there's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of comments, of course, that have come after the LSU Tigers receive their first and win their first ever in men's or women's championship under Kim Mulkey, their head coach. Kim Mulkey getting championships with the Baylor Bears, Louisiana Tech, legendary coach up there with LSU in their second year, getting this championship, beating the likes of Iowa and at the time, they're pretty much the national player of the year, and Caitlin Clark out of Iowa, incredible player, incredible snipe shooter. You need pretty much two players to guard this kid. She's just incredible, and she willed her team past the undefeated South Carolina Gamecocks, who were undefeated the entire year with Dawn Staley at the helm. But Angel Reese, all right, point guard, shooting guards, Jasmine Carson, so on and so forth, because you got Alexis McCann, you got all these players that played incredible for the LSU Tigers. They have more of a team. They have so many players that can fill it up. They have Poa fill it up. They have their guard fill it up, so on and so forth. And they end up winning 102-85. And 100 points in the championship game is really hard to do. But Alexis Morris, 33 minutes, 21 points, 9 rebounds as a point guard, lit up the Iowa defense. They could not handle her. Angel Reese with her 34th double-double this season. That's the most double-doubles with 15 and 10. Most double-doubles ever in women's basketball. She's changing the game. Caitlin Clark's changing the game. All right, she had, just off, kind of not a terrible shooting night, playing 35 minutes, but having 30 points, amassing the most points ever in the March Madness tournament ever, because she was just filling it up, had a 40-point game, had a few of them. It just did everything she could to get this championship. She's just an incredible player, but they lose. All right, they had Gabby, they all of these great players, and I actually watched the women's tournament and saw exactly these teams rise. And Angel Reese, before the game even ended, we had some controversy, not even controversy, but more so people online talking about her being classless. All right. Many people between classes, many people sticking up for her simply because she went around, people would say it's a John Cena. It's not the John Cena, it's a Tony Ayo. Remember Tony Ayo and Gina? John Cena actually said himself, and he got that moniker from Tony Ayo from the G-Unit. Tony Ayo, for those that don't know, was pretty much a right-hand man to 50 Cent in the uprising of the G-Unit. We had, of course, Young Buck, Tony Ayo, 50 Cent, that's just crew, Lloyd Banks, that crew was just incredible influencers over time. And that's where John Cena actually got. And he's admitted this as well, too, that he's got that "You Can't See Me." And Caitlin Clark, they have the same "You Can't See Me" to Haley Van Lith, who was on Louisville. They beat Louisville. Haley Van Lith is a great player as well, too. The women's game, I think this is great. Having so many people talk about what's going on in the final game, seeing Angel Reese pointing at her finger, all right, going into the face of Caitlin Clark. They're saying that she called her a certain bad word. Once again, it's alleged, but following her around and kind of showing her, kind of talking trash to her in general. Many people will say that it was unnecessary, but once again, that's the way that they're winning the championship. Caitlin Clark did disrespect Raven Johnson in the semifinal game, shooting her off at the three-point line. She did talk a lot of trash over time to Angel Reese because, I was in the Big Ten. Angel Reese used to be at Maryland in the Big Ten. She's actually from Baltimore, Maryland, and then playing for that team for 2 years and then moving on to LSU. 34-2, the LSU Tigers. All right. They win this game. Kim Mulkey's done an incredible job. They've only lost 2 games the entire season. They just had it, all right, with Alexis Morris, LaDasia Williams, Flau'jae Johnson, who's a pretty much America's Got Talent winner, or is up there, a freshman, pretty much freshman of the year, and going to be an incredible talent. And of course, she's making money as a freshman right now. But that entire team is just ridiculous. Jasmine Carson, 22 points, pretty much all these points coming in the first half where she could not miss. It was just one of those games where LSU just could not miss and couldn't. They just had it going. They had their swag. They're in their bag the entire game, and I don't believe that Angel Reese deserves any criticism at all. Even Caitlin Clark says she doesn't deserve any criticism at all. She's actually a big fan of Angel Reese. Pretty sure they're all big fans of each other. Because to be honest, the entire story of the tournament was Caitlin Clark. The fact that Caitlin Clark was lighting it up from three, could not be guarded, was being compared to the likes of Stephen Curry, Damian Lillard the entire tournament, and rightfully so, because no one can guard her one-on-one. Like she's gonna score regardless. She's gonna be about. She, as a junior right now, will be one of the best players in WNBA. That's how nasty she is. Okay, a lot of people are actually saying, of course, that she's gonna be the next, or arguably one of the best players ever. That's still left to be seen, but from what we see, of course, the product that she's put on the floor, it's undeniable that she's incredible. Like she willed her team to the final game. Like that's tough to do. Stephen Curry couldn't do that, and of course, the men's game, of course, is something else. But for what she's done for that region in Iowa, for the Big Ten, everything that she's done, and she's only a junior. She has pretty much 2 more years left of eligibility, with the COVID year, of course, being implicated as well. It's just an incredible feat, and kudos to her. Kudos to the game of basketball. They had 6.1 million, 6.6, sorry, million people watching the game. That's the most eyes on a final game ever. The game of basketball with the women's sector is growing exponentially, and with these players, with NIL right now, with all these different components added to the game, their game is being shown on a wider scale, and I love it for women's basketball. I hope more people tune into women's basketball. The tournament is just incredible, and I believe that this final game between LSU and Iowa is actually better than the UConn San Diego State game. Of course, San Diego State getting to the national championship in a very dramatic fashion with Lamont actually hitting that shot, then going up against Connecticut. UConn, Coach Danny Hurley, these guys from Hawkins to Sonogo, so on and so forth, to Joey California. All these players they have are just incredible. They're just incredible players, and they have balance, they have size. They had everything in this game going for them, and essentially they could not be stopped. Right, it can't be stopped. Caravan, Snuggle had 17 and 10. The Newton, who's actually the cousin of Aaron Jones, he had 19 and 10. All right, 16 and 4 from Hawkins. Jordan Hawkins is just an incredible player. He's actually the cousin of Angel Reese, and they're both pretty much players of their teams, the best players on their teams, or kind of the standout players in their teams. They're cousins, so the great genes come in that family. But seeing exactly what we have right here with the LSU Tigers, and of course the UConn Huskies as well too, they're just incredible. They're just incredible players. They got a chance to actually go ahead and showcase what they have, and they showcase exactly what they do, and they made it. They made it happen. They made it work. UConn Huskies were pretty much winners of every single game in this entire tournament by more than 10 points, by more than in double digits in every single game. And they're just incredible, and they deserve to be celebrated. This entire tournament was incredible. There's just a lot to be said about the game of NCAA, and the fact that nil money is a part of it now. There's more exposure, more people turning in, so on and so forth. And we can't forget that UConn as well is now blue blood. Okay, blue blood up there with the Dukes, the Kentuckys. You can even put UCLA there. All of these schools have had more than 5 championships. They have to be in that conversation. All right, with Kemba Walker, with all those teams that have won over the years, UConn is a basketball factory. Okay, they have to be up there with even Villanova coming from the Big East. The Big East just produces a number of great players, a number of great teams. Dan Hurley did a great job with that team, getting them to the finals, getting them to winning every game by double digits. They end up winning the game 76-59 against San Diego State, who for a stretch after in the second quarter, the start of the second quarter, they got a chance. They crept it back and brought it between 8, but because they missed so many shots in the first half, just could not make it close enough to make sure that they get in within arm's length of the UConn Huskies. And Jordan Hawkins is an NBA player, dog. Canabra, dog. Big men they have on this team, Snogo, dog. All of these guys pretty much on the team, when it comes to what they do, the care about, the minutes they get, how big they are, Their size is just incredible. Clingan is a 7-foot guy. He didn't really have the biggest game, but defensively, they just stop. They clog everything up in the middle. Right? They clog everything up. And that's the reason why they have been so balanced throughout this tournament. Like no team could touch them. You couldn't say at the start of the year, they weren't even ranked to the start of the year. They were ranked, but they weren't in that high. And to now become pretty much the best team, it just goes to show you that team chemistry, peaking at the right time, being well coached, having senior players that have been through the situation, have been through, you know, the entire story. The entire story, there's just different tough situations. It really matters down the stretch. And that's exactly what LSU had, exactly what UConn has. A lot of these guys were transfers on LSU and the women's team. 9 players were transferred in. Entire team kind of shooken up by Kim Mulkey. And both of these coaches are formidable coaches. So you need to have good coaching. You need to have senior players. You need to have leadership. You need to have guys that understand the situation to win a tournament where you do not get beat. Like that's incredible to do. That's really tough to do, and they did it. Now, shifting to the NBA. There's a lot to be said about everything that's happening right now in the play. There's a lot to be said about the players, the positions they take, whether it comes to sitting down, when it comes to the number of different factors. And I would say, firstly, players that are unhappy in certain situations, getting a fresh start, like the Kyries, like the KDs, so on and so forth. They haven't really shown or had a burst as of yet. So to start, I'm going to start with the Mavericks. The Mavericks had a 94% chance of making the playoffs at the trade deadline. After attaining Kyrie, 94% chance. 2 months later, we see that they have a 6% chance of making the playoffs. And that's just getting a 9 seed and getting into playing game. And they play the Sacramento Kings. They play. They have a tough schedule down the stretch. Luka seems like he's unhappy. Kyrie already has 1 foot out the door. Because we know right now, if they do not make the playoffs, Kyrie's not signing with the Mavericks. Kyrie's going to go off and do whatever he does. He's a world elite, class talent. He's a world-class talent. Luka's a world-class talent as well, too. But it has not worked. They've lost close games. They've scored a lot of points, but they can't defend. They got rid of Finney-Smith. They got rid of a number of players that have pretty much done a lot in that system and have done a lot defensively. Like Finney-Smith was a guy that you can put in their best player and he'll get a stop. You don't have that now. All right. Hardaway hasn't stepped up to the punch. Hardy hasn't stepped up to the punch. Green hasn't stepped up to the punch. They don't have the stopper on defense. And that's the reason why they've lost a lot of close games. The reason why they haven't been able to close it out down the stretch. They just haven't been able to put together. Luka and Kyrie are not even they're just not an effective match. They're not a match that you can see going to take it for years to years. KD, Booker, Chris Paul, that's something I can see. KD and Booker, those are 2 guys I can definitely see take it. But Luka and Kyrie, they just cannot. They don't have the chemistry. They play too alike. They don't play defense too well. That team is really, really, and I wonder what Mark Cuban actually has to say about this team, but they just haven't put it together. Jason Kidd hasn't figured it out. I would not be surprised if they miss the playoffs because Kyrie's in the walk. You gave us so much for Luka to be happy, and now he's unhappy with what's happening. It's just not a good look. If you had a big, remember, that's already gone through it. They've already had Porzingis. It's tried with Kyrie. To be 0-2, 2 guys that you bring in to be the pretty much not even the Robin, but just another star number 2 player. It has not worked out for Luka. You need a guy that can really just step in there and be that complementary piece, almost as though he's like an Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis has been playing terrific. All right. If they win out, the Lakers will be the 5th seed. But if they're the 5th seed, they don't want to see the Suns. They want to get into a seed where they can play the Sacramento Kings in the first round. One thing about Anthony Davis as well, too, since I speak about him, been a great complementary piece for Luka, because I think when they're at their best and they're healthy, they can really get some damage done. It will never happen because he's with the Lakers and LeBron. But Anthony Davis is having his best season in a long time since the bubble. He's shooting 60% from the field. He's stopping, and that 60% from inside the arc, right? So in the 2-point areas, 2-point percentage, it's 60%. It's the best he's ever had. Anything from pick and pop getting downhill, not taking threes, not settling for threes. He's done an incredible job of that, and he's been super efficient. That's exactly what you look like. That's the reason why they're in the position right now. Since the trade deadline, the Lakers, with D'Angelo Russell, with Beasley, with Reeves, with, of course, LeBron getting back in the fold, with Schroeder, have done a really good job piecing it together. They've actually beaten teams that the years past they haven't been able to beat. And it's because they've gotten the trade, they've gotten the pieces in. They low-key did the best job. No, low-key, high-key did the best job at the trade deadline to get a certain core around LeBron, a certain core around AD to really get going. Another thing with Anthony Davis is that he 34% of the field is second best in NBA defensively with players going up against him. So in the key, just contesting it, 34%. Everyone shooting the ball around him are actually achieving. So that's the second best in the NBA for defensive efficiency. He's playing out of his mind. And many people are not really saying too much because this is what we expect from AD. You expect Anthony Davis to be one of the best players. You expect Anthony Davis to be in the MVP running. He's been hampered by injuries, but he's playing his best ball right now. That's the reason why these Lakers are in a playoff seed right now. The reason why they're going to get into a playoff position. The reason why they're going to be competitive and going to be a really tough out. Really tough out. So I think if they piece it all together, and I hate the Lakers. I hate everything about the Lakers organization. I do respect LeBron. Obviously, always been a LeBron guy, but just the Lakers in general, just never really had it. Love Kobe. Just the culture around them and all the fans. I'm not really the biggest fan, but seeing what they're doing, if you want to bet on the Lakers, I will put a future on them getting to the conference finals or doing something to get there because they've really shown that they can be very efficient around with AD, right? And this brings me to two other big men that need a lot of recognition and are in the MVP conversation. Jokic, Joel Embiid. Nikola Jokic has played incredible. He's obviously the two-time MVP, but Embiid deserves this MVP. Everything he's done, I know he sat out a few games, but he's been the most super efficient the entire year. Can put up 30 and 10, 30 and 15 on any given night. He's played out of his mind defensively, offensively. He's a factor on both sides of the floor, and he stayed healthy. That's the biggest thing. He stayed healthy. When Jokic was going off and staying healthy, Embiid was actually getting hurt. And everyone understands that. And of course, last year, many could say that, Embiid deserves the MVP, but I think this year he deserves it full well because the team is doing really well. They're competing for probably even getting the number one seed, not even the number one seed, but they're competing to get out of the East with the Milwaukee Bucks, with the Boston Celtics, so on, with the Cavaliers. Like there's a lot of teams in the East that are playing really well. But Embiid's the reason why the 76ers are the reason or are where they are. He deserves the MVP. He deserves all the recognition. That's a team that actually has it going right now. Can they get out of these? With Harden, Tyrese Maxey, these guys that they have in the fold, they have the pieces to do it. But it really depends if they can defend and hanker down against the Boston Celtics, against the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, and another guy, Giannis, is playing incredible. The entire team just has it together with Budenholzer. They just have a team that knows what they're doing. But I do think this is the year. This is the year the Sixers have to get out of the East. This is the year they really have to anchor down, execute down the stretch. And they've done it. They've won close games. They've won with a lot of pressure. And that's a lot of credit does go to Embiid. A lot of credit does go to Doc Rivers. Of course, the pick and pop with Harden is nearly impossible to stop with him and Embiid. But they just have to put it together and not lose to one of these teams that, of course, are around the same level as them as they go. Got to give a shout out to Dirk Nowitzki, Dwayne Wade, and the Spurs trio of Tim Duncan. Of course, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili for being inductees to the Hall of Fame. They're all these guys who are going to get into the Hall of Fame. Dirk Nowitzki deserves it. He has a lot more luck than the Mavericks right now. It's just bar none. It's just what it is. Dwayne Wade is just a legend on every facet of the world. I got a chance to see or get to a Miami Heat game a few weeks ago, and in Miami, and that entire just everything about the atmosphere, everything about that area is, you can feel it. It was probably even different, a lot different with Dwayne Wade in the fold, with LeBron then coming there, with Chris Bosh going there. But Dwayne Wade deserves to be in there. He's a legend. He's just done it for the game over and over and over again. He's never complained, plays on both sides of the ball. All of these these players are worthy. And these are the players that I pretty much grew up with. So to see them go into the Hall of Fame is definitely shows me I'm getting older. But really, really excited to see those guys get in because they deserve it. All the work they put in a sense, changed the game fundamental wise. So the Spurs, Dirk was the first big man to be scoring off 1 foot fadeaway, able to shoot from anywhere. He's really changed the game for big men that need to shoot. Dwayne Wade's just super athletic, play both sides of the ball, both sides of the court, of course, as we like to say, makes mid-range shots, super great mid-range player, expanded it, just a great leader, and just an energizer bunny. He's one of the best. Probably my favorite player of all time is Dwayne Wade. But that leads me to some unfortunate news. And no, it's not the fact that the Bengals are going to be the best team next year. They're going to be good. This is about the Toronto Raptors. Nick Nurse said in an interview that he's going to evaluate after 10 years of coaching. He's going to evaluate in this offseason, see exactly where it is. He said he deserves a pretty much a evaluation time. He's been coaching the Raptors for quite some time right now. They've secured a play-in berth. I think they'll do well with the play-in berth. But of course, you play in to that, you got to play the number 1 seed after, and let's see exactly what happens there. All right, let's see if they can beat the Milwaukee Bucks, which will be really tough to do. Pascal Siakam's got to play really well. He's putting up all NBA numbers once again, but the Raptors don't have that star. They don't have that guy that can come in. And you can say this about a lot of teams. A lot of teams don't have that guy. We don't have an Embiid. We don't have of course, a Kawhi Leonard. We don't have a Harden. Harden's not even that guy right now. Giannis, Luka. We don't have that guy. These guys have not shown that. They still can win against inferior opponents. When it comes to talent that's a lot more superior than them, they have to find ways to win, find ways to make shots in the paint. But unfortunately, we don't have the 3-point shooting to compete with a lot of these teams. But his future, Nick Nurse, it's still up in the air. I think he's been a great coach for a long period of time. This team may need a new kind of new approach to the game. They may need that. There's been a lot of interest with Ime Udoka. He may join the Raptors. He may not. But Ime Udoka is available. Of course, all the scandal stuff with the Boston Celtics and their workers in there, so on and so forth, and him, getting around. That's something that's left to be talked about. But Nurse's future is up in the air, and that's perfectly fine. I believe everyone deserves the right to reevaluate their life, reevaluate exactly what they do, so on and so forth, because this is their life, right? This is coaching's life. He's stressing out every single game about the Raptors not getting certain calls, so on and so forth, having bad luck on the road sometimes, but they get a chance to see and get some playoff experience. They get a chance to see it through, and he did say that. He said this team desperately needs some playoff experience. They're young. They need to gel it together. I'm interested to see exactly how they fare in the playoffs. They self-motivate. So, of course, intrinsic motivation they have. Fred VanVleet's been a really good leader for the team. Pascal's been a leader by example. There's just a lot of positive with the team, but they still need to make, and it's going to be really interesting to see how Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster make some changes in the offseason, because you got to see, do you pay Gary Trent Jr.? Right? Do you pay OG Anunoby? Who do you let walk? Who do you let stay? It's really up in the air right now, and I'm really excited to see exactly what they do with that. But the NBA season is upon us. Playoffs are coming really soon. The March Madness tournament is just incredible. I don't think anything is better than basketball-wise, tournament-wise. There's nothing better than the tournament. The March Madness tournament is incredible. For 4 weekends, 1, 2, 3, pretty much 4 weekends, we get to see these teams battle out. It's an entire month. And just upsets. We saw upsets. Furman beating Virginia. Of course, Purdue losing to Fairleigh Dickinson. So many great storylines. So many great must-see moments and great stuff to even bet on. I know a number of you have made some money on TRUENORTH.BET. Bet always in the right direction. You already know what it is. But its entire tournament was incredible. There might be some rumor about an NBA in-season tournament really soon. So we'll have some word there, because of course it might be a one game an elimination kind of deal. But it's incredible. Basketball is back. March, I do miss March, honestly, with all the stuff that did happen there. It seems incredible, but entire tournament, the entire field, everything was incredible. And I'm really excited to see how everything shakes out. Does Nick Nurse stay? Do the Mavericks make the playoffs? Will the Lakers actually, run the table in the playoffs and actually get a good seed? It's all left to be seen. Of course, we will get to that. But I'm your host, Brandon Graham. This is the TRUENORTH.BET podcast. I bet always in the right direction. You follow us at TRUENORTH.BET, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. You already know what it is. Find us on Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to your podcast. This is the end of the podcast. You have to make sure that always, and you never forget to keep balling.